Thank you. How about talking about cap and trade? Are you in favor of cap and trade legislation to encourage companies to use less fossil fuels? If so, how would cap and trade affect Connecticut businesses? If not, what? The first person, again, is Mr. Larson.
We just had T. Boone Pickens in here. I am the author of the Natural Gas Act. The Natural Gas Act, and one of the most important things that faces this nation, is to make sure that we wean ourselves off of dependency on foreign oil. And to do so, what we have to do is utilize all the resources that are available to us, including natural gas. We have more than 200 years of supply that exists that we're going to tap into and make sure that we use. With respect to cap and trade, I think that anything with regard to making sure that we have a cleaner environment, a healthier environment, and that we provide certainty for our industries. We can't let China and Brazil and every other nation lead us. We've got to make investments, which the Recovery Act did, in batteries, in solar, in wind, and in natural gas, and also in fuel cell technology, which we have led the way on in the state of Connecticut. I'm proud of that accomplishment that we did. I see that our...
Thank you. Shall we look at the time to see how much is left?
To inform everyone, the status of the time right now is uneven. And Mr. Larson, you have 1 minute remaining, and the other candidates have 5 or 6 minutes or so left.
All right. Mr. Krajewski. Mr. Krajewski.
Thank you. If we thought the casino gambling that occurred with credit default swaps and mortgage derivatives and things like that was outrageous, and the bubble that it created and the bubble that burst put us into a financial morass, wait till you see what cap and trade has in store for us. We need to regulate Wall Street, because once they get their hands on cap and trade, I don't believe that it's a solution to our carbon woes. I'm thinking, I don't have a legitimate answer. I'm thinking that a carbon tax might be a more effective way, but I also think that we all need to take legitimate steps towards cutting our own carbon emissions. Can I just see a show of hands as to how many people walked here tonight? 4, 5. How many people bicycled here tonight? Give it up to my people. How many people drove a car here tonight? Drove 2. So for me, it's about cutting our own usage, and the single occupant vehicle is one of those places that we can cut our usage. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Brickley?
Well, first of all, I believe in preserving the environment for our children, and I am as green as they come. I'm an avid gardener, and I don't use pesticides, and I don't use chemicals on my lawn. But having said that, I am very much opposed to cap and trade, and here are the reasons why. First of all, the science around climate change. As an engineer, it's not clear to me if all the data around climate change, and in particular the effects of humans on climate change, is clearly on the table. Secondly, a process like cap and trade is being used in Europe. It's had basically no impact on the environment, and it has added to the cost of energy. If cap and trade goes through, you can be guaranteed that here in Connecticut, your energy costs are going to go up. Those costs are going to be passed on to you, the residential customers, as well as all the business owners. We can expect a typical family to pay an increase of about $900 a year in terms of our electrical bills, and this could be the final straw for some of the businesses that are struggling to add jobs. We are the highest energy costs in the country. If cap and trade goes through, this will be the end. Unlike Congressman Larson, I support legislation that would be responsible energy alternatives, but I do not advocate adding a tax like cap and trade.
Thank you. Next question is...
All right, thank you. All right, we cannot address the environmental crisis without confronting big oil and big business. And you can't go against global warming without confronting the military-industrial complex. And John Larson is in their pocket with companies like UTC and Pratt & Whitney. We stand for an emergency response to the climate crisis that puts workers in the driver's seat and has no concessions for big business. Big business like BP has proven again and again how destructive the profit-driven economy is to our environment. This is what happens when we allow private entities to control nature. We say decommission the oil industry. Take all the assets of companies like BP to clean the environment and instead of destroying it. Oil workers will have the best experience for this, so we think they should lead the charge. We are also for control of worker safety regulations, where workers should have the power to shut down the plant or the oil rig if the conditions are unsafe, and they should only restart it again when the conditions are deemed safe. Had that been the case on the BP oil platform, the gusher would have never have happened.
Thank you. Mr. Krajewski.
I see Ms. Brickley likes to garden, but she doesn't think that global warming is real, unfortunately. You know, she likes to keep her fingers in the dirt, but her head in the sand here. Global warming is real, and we have to
No personal statements, please.
My apologies.
The next question is a big one, but we only have, what, about 5 minutes? We have enough time. All right. At what point does Iran's nuclear crisis become untenable? Do we wait until they have a workable device before deciding to act? If we do act, what form, other than sanctions, should it take?
The Iranian nuclear capability is a very, very serious threat to our national security, and we need to make sure that we do everything humanly possible to prevent that from being able to occur. The sanctions are having mixed results. I would advocate for stronger sanctions, crippling sanctions, cutting off their access to refined petroleum products, cutting off more financial access as well. But I do think that we need to be prepared to consider all options to make sure that Iran does not create a nuclear capability.
Ahmadinejad is a serious threat. We stand with our greatest ally in the Middle East, Israel.
Thank you. The next question is, where do you stand regarding trying terrorists in U.S. courts rather than military tribunals? Ms. Brickley.
I think that terrorists should be tried in the military tribunals.
Mr. Hutchinson?
I
think we should close Guantanamo prison. I think a lot of these trials, extra-governmental trials, these extra-governmental raids and governmental raids on the Muslim and Arab communities need to stop. There's been raids on all these communities, and now they're raiding peace activists, they're raiding socialist groups, they're raiding even AFL, CIO labor leaders in Chicago and Minnesota, and they're trying to bring them before a grand jury. They're trying to subpoena them before a grand jury. I think these government raids need to stop, and I call on John Larson to stop them immediately, to denounce them, and protect our brothers and sisters in the trade union movement.
Thank you. Mr. Larson?
I don't think I have the time to how much time do I have left? 50 seconds. On an issue of this weight. We should close Guantanamo, and we should not be afraid of to try people in our democracy, but we should use common sense and apply it when we're looking at the venue in the United States.
Thank you.
Very quickly, President Obama promised to close Guantanamo. It's Congress's job to make sure that he follows through on that promise. He has not. I think that the due process of law is one of the cornerstones of our society. We all benefit from due process of law, and when we deprive other people of due process of law, we do not fulfill the promises of this country.